recorded.
Okay. I'd like to call the Site Plan Review Committee to order for Tuesday, March 16th. Roll call, please.
Mary Kadowski.
Here.
Gary Paul.
Here.
Chris Atkinson.
Here.
Dennis Persick.
Here.
Dan Pamprin.
Here.
Andy Korowski.
Here.
Dale Quinn.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda.
I'll make a motion. Second.
A motion by Andy Kurowski, a second by Chris Atkinson to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, action on the site plan review minutes from the regular meeting of March 2nd.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Gary Paul, seconded by Chris Atkinson to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, review plans for the following locations. A, action regarding site plan review for Chick-Fil-a 2401 block of South Oneida Street, parcel VA-132-1-6. Aaron.
The requested site plan review is for a proposed Chick-fil-A fast food restaurant with drive-through located at the 2401 block South Oneida Street. The actual location for the Chick-fil-A will be located immediately south of the Anderson Drive entrance to the mall. So right now there's a vacant area just south of the drive all the way to Longhorn Steakhouse. In terms of the building itself, it's about 4,800 square feet with a 2-lane drive-through. Proposed use is consistent with permitted uses under the PUD for the Bay Park Square Mall property. Exterior materials of proposed Chick-fil-A will be 2 shades of brick veneer with aluminum storefront windows and window canopies. Parapet walls will be extended up to shield any mechanical screening from view. Dumpster enclosure will be located in the parking lot. It'll consist of masonry with similar color as the primary building. It also have solid gates to shield view. While staff was reviewing the Chick-fil-A, it was discovered that the proposed location is located approximately 27.7 feet from the South Oneida Street right-of-way. The setback on South Oneida Street is actually 35 feet. In terms of how that impacts this project, there is a recommendation or a condition of approval of having the village board approve a PUD amendment reducing the setback to 25 feet for the Bay Park Square PUD along South Oneida Street. That would assist this project, would also assist 2 other buildings on the property that are currently within the 35-foot setback. And that may be due to the reconstruction of South Oneida Street when that happened. May have been some right-of-way acquired at that time, thereby reducing that setback. So to bring those 2 buildings into compliance as well. So I see a benefit overall to not just this building, but the other 2 buildings as well. In terms of the traffic we expect to be generated from the Chick-fil-A, I think we're all familiar with how popular the Chick-fil-A franchise is. The Chick-fil-A will actually have 2 full-service drive-through lanes with a queue for up to 37 vehicles within the 2 lanes themselves. There'll be additional stacking available along the drive lane and extending out. As staff, we were concerned about the traffic being generated and its potential impacts on South Oneida Street. Chick-fil-A did engage a group called TADI, Traffic Analysis and Design, Traffic Impact Analysis, I'm sorry, Traffic Analysis and Design Incorporated out of Brookfield. They've done some work for the village in the past for different traffic impact analysis. Well-respected local firm who understood the situation we're dealing with. In terms of the traffic impact analysis, I did include the executive summary for your information. There's not to be expected any engineering design issues impacting South Oneida Street. There are a few recommendations for improvements to the internal drive path for Bay Park Square Mall, including addition of some dedicated turn lanes that would separate the through traffic from the traffic that would be turning into the Chick-fil-A drive-through or parking area. Couple modifications that were recommended included the addition of a ladder-style painted pedestrian crossing to match the pedestrian aisle located within the existing parking lot. There's also a recommendation regarding the dedicated right turn lane that I discussed, as well as shifting of 2 parking lot islands to accommodate the drive lane. One thing to keep note of, so when the TIA was first developed, it utilized a standard fast food restaurant with drive-through for the traffic impacts and traffic generation numbers. As staff, we looked at, we said, you know what, we understand that's typical, however, we expect this Chick-fil-A to be a little more popular than your standard fast food restaurant. To accommodate that, TADI did obtain actual transactional data from the Chick-fil-A in Brookfield. So a similar mall setting location. The input those numbers into their model came up with the same results, although again, that's where they came up with the additional design recommendations for the internal ring road for the mall itself. As staff, we recognize that traffic will likely be an issue for the Chick-fil-A. We expect to be very popular, which is a good thing. The first, probably I'm going to say at least 3 to 6 months during the grand opening period, I expect there to potentially be backups onto South Oneida Street. That's not based on hard data. That's just based upon experience and what I think we can expect based upon the popularity of the franchise. That said, if there are any backups onto South Oneida Street that require the assistance of public safety for traffic control, direction, so on and so forth, the cost of that would be borne by Chick-fil-A, similar to any other business requiring public safety assistance for a large event. Okay. In terms of recommended conditions of approval, and I'm finding out more and more that I'm going to have to bring cheaters to read these. Implementation of crosswalk and traffic island improvement recommendations in the traffic impact analysis. Approval of a PUD amendment for reduced setback along South Oneida Street by the Ashwaubenon Village Board. Provide a sampling manhole downstream of the grease interceptor. Agreement with the Schwabnen Public Safety regarding responsibility for costs associated with additional traffic control as necessary. From Public Safety, again, keys for the riser room and back kitchen door to be placed in a Knox box. Master key is preferred. Continuing on, also from Public Safety, the FDC or Fire Department connection and Knox box locations are okay as indicated as long as they're visible with no obstructions. There's an outside horn or strobe required in the building above the FDC. From Forestry, please substitute the 4 greenspire little leaf linden planted along Oneida Street just beyond the sidewalk due to being planted beneath overhead power line. Please substitute with another species compatible with these site conditions. Suggestions are snowcap Japanese tree lilac and flowering crabs. Please note these trees will also need to have a high salt tolerance. The north and south parking lot islands in the main parking lot both have large maturing species, honey locust, planted beneath overhead parking lot lights. Please change to more compatible species to allow for full illumination by the lights. From Bike and Ped, also conditions of approval. Bicycle parking compatible with the guidelines of the Association of Pedestrian Professionals. That should be located somewhere in the vicinity of the main entrance. And then include signage warning drivers to be aware of pedestrians at the crosswalk location recommended by the traffic impact analysis. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. There are also representatives of Chick-fil-A on the online as well if you have questions for them.
Aaron, did they take in consideration that the Panda's been really busy as they merge in there? Does this study include them, how busy they are, how they merge in with traffic, or not really?
It does take the Panda Express into account, as well as the potential for a outlot development fronting on Pilgrim Way in the Steinhoffels building parking lot as well. So it takes into account the new Panda Express as well as the potential new building that's just conceptual at this point, but it's been talked about.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, Aaron, when that property was built, they expected outbuildings in the front of Oneida Street. I think the mall did a pretty good job in putting I don't want to call it an access road in there, but there is a road running through the parking lot from south to north that can pick up some of that traffic that you're so concerned about. Watching Popeyes, they had a big opening as was expected, but going by there a few times recently, that's diminished quite a bit. They do have cars there, but nothing that's blocking roads. I think that's a temporary thing. I think the mall did a pretty good job in anticipating large traffic of something of this nature. You know, I know they were good enough to do a traffic impact study, which is fine, but, you know, I hope it's crowded on the beginning, but I think as time goes on, we'll see some normalcy in traffic as the customers know how to space their time in coming to a place like that. So other than that, I don't see any problem. We were kind of hoping for something like this. I think it's a good addition to the mall. I think we will be well pleased with the turnout that will happen there. So.
Gary, could you speak into your mic a little bit more? Thank you. Pull it closer to you. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'll move to approve the project as presented with staff recommendations.
Okay, so we have a motion by Gary Paul, a second by Andy Kurowski to approve with staff conditions as presented. Any more discussion?
Aaron, like Gary, was over at Popeyes. I was there twice this week, matter of fact, at lunch hour. They do have some backup there, and it looks like they have traffic control in the parking lot. There's actually a person in the parking lot directing people around.
They do, Dan.
Yeah, does Chick-Fil-A plan on the same thing? Because
Yeah, they are pretty serious about their traffic control, and they really take pride in moving people in and out of their drive-throughs at a really quick clip. So they actually have people that will facilitate that, yes.
So I'm assuming that's an employee of Chick-fil-A.
Correct.
So they would work with public safety if it backs up on Oneida Street?
Right. If we start getting calls, we'll have to send public safety out there, and we'll have to work with Chick-fil-A on that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have to say, Aaron, that having personal experience in the Appleton location, probably last fall, I think, the organization was splendid, and there were cars out into the street. I don't know if it's still that way now, but we were very impressed with how fast we got through there, and there must have been 40 cars. And they had at least 2 people, in a little bit of rain, I might add, or that were outside with, I think, iPads or something, keeping everything moving. And it was, I don't think I've ever had such a quick experience going through a packed drive-through.
That's one of the reasons why they have 2 canopies. There's one canopy at the order site and one canopy at the drop-off site. It gives their employees some protection for the elements when they are out there with their iPads.
Yeah, this must have been just unusually crowded that day, but we were really impressed with how fast everything went.
Dennis, at that site, I believe they got an access road to that mall too, don't they? Where the traffic was sitting, it wasn't sitting on College Avenue.
But in Appleton?
Yeah.
Yeah, there, it was right out into the access
Was
road.
that
but-
right out on the avenue?
Yeah,
Okay.
but
'Cause I
again,
know
it
they have
might
an
have been early
access
in
road in there.
the process, but yeah, they were out to the road, but they still handled it real well.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Aaron. 6B, action on a request for a third wall sign for Chick-fil-A to be located at 2401 Block South Oneida Street.
Okay. This is a pretty standard request for a third wall sign as approvable by the Site Plan Review Committee. The submittal materials did indicate 4 wall signs. That was just incorrect submission. You will notice on the submittal materials that the drive-through elevation, or the one fronting on Oneida Street, is crossed off. So that one is not requested. So the other 3 sides, to be the north, south, and east sides of the Chick-fil-A, are proposed to have the 3 wall signs.
Aaron, they fit within our, it's just that we're okaying 3 signs, but they do fit in with the square footage that we require.
Correct on both accounts.
Okay, all right. This is nothing unusual for us of having 3 wall signs like what Aaron said, so.
Pretty standard procedure. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve with staff conditions. Second.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Chris Atkinson, a second by Dale Quinn, with staff conditions. Any more conversation on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 6C, action regarding requested rooftop ductwork screening exception request for Valley View Elementary School and Ashwaubenon High School. Aaron?
Okay, this is a resubmittal on an item that we looked at at a last meeting regarding required screening for rooftop mechanical equipment and associated materials at Valley View and the high school. Since then, Brander Engineering has put together some additional information for consideration by the Site Plan Review Committee in support of their request for an exception to the screening requirement at those 2 locations. I guess what I'll probably do at this point is hand it off to Joe Finger to kind of run you through what they put together. Oh, Keith will. All right, Keith Lucius, everyone.
State your name and address, please, Keith.
You need the laptop?
I'll let you know when I need this. Keith Lucius, 2946 Foxford Drive in Ashwaubenon. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for the Ashwaubenon School District. First of all, I want to thank all of you. I know this, putting you all in a difficult situation as we look at these things, and this is a tough job as you try to work through what's best for the community and deal with different constituencies asking questions, and know that you'll get questions on this after the fact as well, and you've got to worry about setting precedent. I know it's challenging, and I appreciate your time and your willingness to listen. Second of all, I want to thank you for the input you gave us at the last meeting. We've gone back and looked at the ideas that you had, and we've tried to find ways to improve, and I think we have improved the proposal from where we were last meeting. First of all, at the last meeting, I'll go through a couple of things. You talked about using louvered screens instead of solid screens to reduce the wind load. When we talked with industry experts, there's very little change as we do louvered screens, and the industry said that if the perforation pattern that is needed to provide significant load reduction would no longer function as a site screen. So basically, the industry is telling us that that's not a solution that's going to reduce the load significantly by poking holes in the screen. And what will happen is you'll end up seeing the ductwork and the screen, and it just won't do the intended job. So using louvered screens in the end didn't result in a workable solution. Second, we had the suggestion was made to attach the screens to the ductwork that's already being put on the roof. And what we found is that as we reviewed that, and we thought we knew this, but we reviewed it, the ductwork, the way it is attached to the roof or the way it is on the roof, isn't penetrating the roof. It doesn't have the engineering strength to handle the wind loads of the screen attached to it without changing how we attach it to the roof, and we'd end up creating more penetrations into the roof if we attach screening directly to the ductwork, and we'd have more lineal feet of screening that would be not in a straight line pattern, so it would look not as nice as normal screening because you'd have screening in all different directions as the ductwork goes in a lot of different directions. So the wind load on that ductwork would increase by over 60% if we attach the screening to it. So it didn't make sense from an engineering standpoint. It didn't make sense from an appearance standpoint to attach the screening to the ductwork. The last question that I want to talk about is the appearance of the ductwork. One of the things that our ductwork, in our original spec, it's wrapped in a light brown material, non-metallic. It's meant to blend in with the outside of the building, so it creates a horizontal line similar to the top of the building, so it doesn't stand out. It's not going to be a contrasting color or something that's going to stand out. So someone, if they do see some of the ductwork, it's not going to be in your face. It's going to blend in with what they're seeing with the rest of the building, so it's not going to jump out at someone. So I think what we did then along with that is we looked at redesigning the ductwork pattern, and this is where some of the input you gave us helped. We changed the ductwork pattern. What we did, and this sounds counterintuitive, is we raised the main lines, which are in the center of each branch of the building, up, and then brought the lines that are going out to each classroom down below them. So what that means is at the center of the building, farthest away from the edge of the building, it's higher, but then as it goes out towards the classrooms, it's lower, so there'll be less exposed. And the other big advantage is it'll be a straight horizontal line as you see that center ductwork. So it'll look similar to the way a screen would look with a straight horizontal line. It's a light brown in color, matching the color of the brick or close to the color of the brick, so it won't stand out. It'll blend in much better and be a consistent line. And as we look at the pictures, one of the pictures shows the way it was drawn, and one of the pictures shows the change, and you'll be able to see the difference. So I want to point that out. So Aaron, if we could go to the pictures. The first picture Aaron has up is at the high school where we're looking at the different ductwork. Why don't we go to the next picture? So here is the view from next to the football field. And as you can see, there's very little you're going to see of the ductwork there. You really would have to look to try and find it.
I should show the.
That's the existing, okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
now the proposed.
Now the proposed. So there's a really slight change, but you have to really look to find it. And I think you all have this picture as well, so let's go to the next one. So now we're looking at the existing, okay, from Willard Drive, and you really basically can't see any ductwork from that angle either. And if somebody has a question or sees something that they want to talk about more on these, let us know. But we'll move through these because this one there isn't as much to see. And then once again, from Willard Drive, as you go closer to Ridge Road, you're not going to see much ductwork. And then as we go to the Ridge Road side,
Proposed, yep.
so let's go to the Ridge Road side. That's where you'll see some ductwork. That's the existing, I think.
Yep.
And we scroll down. So there you'll see some ductwork, but you can see the light brown color. The large part that you see there is the screening around the mechanicals. That we're going to include regardless. That was included in our original plan. So all the mechanical things are screened. What we're talking about is ductwork, and there isn't a lot of, much of the view, even from Ridge Road, that you're going to see. So Valley View is where there's the possibility to see more of the ductwork. So let's go to the first view. So if we look from the front of the building, one of the things that I want to point out is depending on where you are, the trees are going to be a natural screen for most of the view, but there are some spots where you will see some ductwork. But when you look at the existing and then at the what it looks like with the ductwork up there, the ductwork actually screens some of the existing roof mechanicals or ductwork that's up there already, roof vents. So it provides almost a natural screen for some of the things that are currently existing that were done before this ordinance was in place. So I think from that main entrance side of the building, you're not going to see anything other than a horizontal line similar to a screening, and that was our goal. If we go to the north side of the building, once again, you're going to have a lot of trees that are natural screens, as you're not, unless you're standing on the school grounds, you're not going to see anything there other than the tree screening. You're not going to see the roof. There's a little bit of ductwork that you will see, and that is really, once again, a straight horizontal line similar to what a screening would look like. And that really is the recurring theme you're going to hear, is that it looks like a straight horizontal line, which was what the screening would look like if we had the screening in place as well. So here we go. This is where you're going to see the most amount of the ductwork. This is from the southern side of the building, and you're looking at the before and the after, and you'll see some ductwork. And this is where, this was an old rendering where we had the main ductwork lower and had to go over the top to get the ductwork to each classroom over. So what we changed is we raised the main ductwork up, so on this picture, you see some of the humps where it's crossing over the top. That would be gone, and the main ductwork would be a straight line across, and all the crossovers would go underneath. So I think that's a big improvement on how this appearance will look. The ductwork going out to each room will be much lower, and it doesn't go any farther towards that room than it has to. So it doesn't get to the edge of the building or anything like that. It stops as we get into where that room, each room starts on that side of the building.
Keith,
Yes.
the picture you just had up there, Parkview 3 proposal, you said that round ductwork there is going to be flattened so it isn't as visible as what we're looking at right now?
Correct. This was the original proposal that we had where it was going over the top of the main duct line. So
Okay.
what we've done with the redesign is raised the main duct line a little bit and then gone underneath. So those humps that you'll see, I think I see 3 or 4 of them on that picture, those all won't be humps. It'll be a straight line across.
Well, that's one improvement.
You're gonna,
Could you speak into your mic, please, Andy? Thank you.
you were gonna paint it so it camouflaged in a little bit then too?
Yeah, so and you can see even on these pictures, it's a really light tan or light brown, so it's meant to match the building and not stand out as much, especially in Valley View where you have really light colored brick. It blends in really well.
Good deal.
This afternoon, I went and I, let me take this off. This afternoon, I went and talked with a lot of the people that live on Orlando. I knocked on the doors of the people that were home. There were people that were not home. I talked to either 4 or 5 people on Orlando, and none of them had an issue. When I showed them this picture, which from what Keith just said, it's going to be improved from this picture, and none of them had a problem with that. And then on the Marvell side, there was only one lady that I was able to get a hold of, and she had no problem with it. She said she's been here since 1966 when that was a really little building, and it's much bigger right now, and she loves Ashwaubenon. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that, because that was a concern, is the people in that neighborhood, because it was so much residential. So I went out, and the majority of them don't have a problem with it.
I really appreciate that you did that, Mary. I thought that would be their reaction, but without knowing it, it's hard to say. But I think that, and when you look on the Marvell side, there's so many trees along that side. Once there's leaves, you're not going to see that. So the only time you'd really get to see it would be winter.
Correct.
When the leaves are gone.
Correct.
Keith, that was a question I was going to bring up. Your idea of trees as camouflaging is one thing, but from November till May, it's quite visible. The comment I want to make is you've had engineering, designers, and whatever else working on this. You knew you were going to do this when the referendum, this was one of your parts of the referendum. Our staff does a good job on putting together the needs of what should be done on our ordinances to make these things happen. And one of them is screening this project. I guess why didn't these people sit down with Aaron and discuss this rather than to have these lengthy meetings on what's right and what's wrong? These buildings were built in neighborhoods, and now they got to look at this. I'm to the point where I can leave some of it go because of the distance away from the road that they are, and to sit and pick it apart, you got to stop and look at it. At 20, 25 miles an hour, you're not going to find it. But Valley View is really an issue for me because it's kind of in the area that I represent. And I just have a problem on going along with not camouflaging these, if I want to use that word, to make the residents happy with what we're getting here. I know Mary went out and did her best at what she could do for the time she had, but this all should have been taken in consideration when this project started. And here we sit again, wondering what to do with it. So, like I said from the beginning, I can forgive some of it because of the distance and where it's at. But boy, when it starts affecting our neighborhood, I'm really questioning it yet.
Aaron, are these 2 separate issues? Can we approve one without the other, or Should we take them up separate?
The ordinance provides you flexibility in providing an exception. It doesn't specify what you have to provide the exception for the entire item. I mean, you can take it separately. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
So we could, right now, separate this and talk about the high school and possibly make a decision on the high school, and then after we're done with the high school, take up Valley View.
Sure.
I mean, I think we should, because I think we got two total different issues here, in my opinion. I honestly, in my opinion, think the high school is, I don't like to say this, but I think that we could bend the rules a little on the high school, and I don't think there will be much blowback from the community or the residents. I went up there and looked at it, and except for what I think would be 3 or 4 homes along Ridge Road, I really don't see a resident being upset with the high school. Just my opinion. I don't know about the rest of the board.
I guess
And
if
we
I,
got some pretty prominent people living on Ridge Road there that are overlooking there, and
I talked to one of them.
have you talked to one of them?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was, can you share the comment, or did you prefer to keep that to yourself?
I'll let them share it.
I guess if I could, just real quickly, in terms of, site plan review committee authority, it's really a, it's a, let's say, a go, no-go type process. Now, you can't certainly separate the two items. But in terms of how you view the projects, it's not meant to be a subjective, so it can't be, well, we think this one looks okay, this one doesn't. It really has to be looked at in terms of, okay, the structural analysis to provide the exception. So the structural analysis, the overall, the wind loads, things like that, that can impact if it's even feasible to have screening. So again, I guess I don't want us to get caught up into, well, I think this one looks okay and I think this one doesn't. Because again, it becomes, the site plan review committee is more of a administrative board. It's not a policy board. So I just want to make sure that, if you decide to look at these separately, again, that's fine, but that you look at that in terms of the framework that within which you can approve or deny the exception requests.
Well, to use the argument that we can't screen this, that's incorrect. I mean, we could build parapets along the perimeter of the school and screen the entire roof line of that building. Now, being a taxpayer of Ashwaubenon, I, for one, think that would be a waste of taxpayer money. All right? Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. I just believe that building a parapet all the way around Valley View or Ashwaubenon High School is a waste of taxpayer money. It's my view as a taxpayer. If we're going to go right and wrong, then my decision would be, well, we're going to make everybody else in the village abide by screening this, then we should make our school district do that. Just my opinion. Now, I also think that the school should come to us with more evidence of what the citizens and the taxpayers of this area feel. And if they were to have a community meeting or some kind of notice to the 40 or 50 residents around Valley View and the 10 or 12 around the high school and inform them of what they're doing, they might have the same opinion as I do. That as a taxpayer, I think it's a waste of money to put the parapet on. And maybe at that point, we could make an exception to this. But to just say flat out that we can't screen this, that's wrong. We could.
And I guess what I want to make sure is that when it becomes a policy decision, and when I start talking about the cost and how it's viewed, that does become more of a policy decision.
Yep.
That would actually hold at the village board if the school district would decide to appeal the decision of the site plan review committee.
Yeah, I
So the
have,
site plan review committee really has to view this in terms of the technical aspects of the code and how the structure handles or does not handle the screening.
I haven't heard of any reasonable alternative to this. I mean, and isn't that why we have a waiver process?
Well, the exception is, in this instance, the exception is that they did the wind load and they did the snow load, and they won't uphold
That's
screening.
my point. I mean, they've done the analysis, they've made some changes to make it as good as they reasonably can within the cost limitations they have.
Right.
So, you know, if there is no other obvious way of going about this, which I can't see, just to say no doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that's why you have a waiver.
Right, and I personally, I have flat roofs, and I have huge issues punching 240 holes in a flat roof.
Yeah.
I would have a problem, and I'd be sick to my stomach punching 4 holes in a flat roof. So I think that, you know, it's not necessarily because it's the school district, it's all those things added up. That's my view, so.
Just one other observation, and that's that, having taught in one of those buildings, it's clear to me that the school district needs to do, and it's about time that the school district does what they're doing with respect to modernizing them. But you have a dilemma, particularly as I agree with Dale, as I read through the material and the engineering comments, you have old buildings that were not built for today's standards. So you're kind of on the horns of a dilemma with respect to what can be done. And again, I agree with Dale's comments with respect to reasonableness. I'm afraid, and I think we ought to consider this, we might be looking at a kind of a bite the bullet situation where I'm not pleased with how that looks. I don't think it's going to look wonderful. And there's no two ways about it. On the other hand, there's no reasonable alternative that I can see. Does anybody have any, I mean, am I accurate there with respect to at least what you have to work with?
Correct. We're dealing with 60-year-old buildings, and there is no good way. We've unturned every stone we can think of, and like I said, we appreciated the ideas we got at the last meeting and tried to look at all those to find any alternative. And I agree with what Dan said, that you could spend a whole lot of money and do it and meet the code, but is that the right thing to do? And at what cost, and is what taxpayers will support? And it doesn't. Is the juice worth the squeeze on that for spending that kind of money? And I agree with what you're saying. I just don't feel it is. I feel like our taxpayers wouldn't support that, and the building doesn't support that. It would be a lot of re-engineering of those walls to extend those walls up to create that screening, and it would be a huge project.
The residences around these buildings, they're quite a ways away. And typically, they're only on either one or two sides of the building. You take the high school, you don't have residential on the south, you don't have it on the west, you don't even have it on the north. You have it on the west, the west, you do, all the way on the other side of Ridge Road. Now, if you take Valley View, you don't have it on the east. You have it on the south, but if you look at the line of sight from the south, that's a lower area. I know the people that live down there. They look up almost to that school. And on the west, I mean, you're all the way on the other side. I can't remember that drive, but you're all the way through that park area, or that playground area. And so, it's not like you're plopping this down in the middle of where you got houses all the way around it, right, just across the street. I mean, yes, you're going to affect some people. There's no question about it, but it just seems to me to throw a lot more money at this than what needs to be. Doesn't seem to be a smart move. So.
And I think I agree with you, and what I would say is that with the redesign that Brander was able to do, it's creating a horizontal line, just like a screen.
Yeah, I think that's
and I think that's a
move,
big difference, whether it looks like a bowl of spaghetti with a bunch of lines, or if it's a straight line across. And that was our goal, to create one horizontal line so it looked similar to the way screening would look if we could put that on the roof without the engineering problem.
Well, especially since you said that, they reworked it again, and the
humps
are that's the biggest thing, is those humps. When you look at the top of the building, and you see that the ductwork, like you said, it looks like a linear line.
Right.
And there's a large metal thing sticking out of that north side of Valley View School already that nobody has ever complained about. So I have a hard time not accepting the exception. Mine is because of the holes in the roof. I can't do it. So.
Just to clarify, the drawing we were given shows large elbows going over, and visible from there will not be none of that with the revised plan?
Right, so if we go to view 4 of the proposed, you'll see it from the north side of the building where it looks like the straight line.
So I mean, you said that the larger feed will be.
Right, so here in this part is where it looks redesigned from this angle, and it's just a straight tan line you see across the roof, and that's what we'll see on the other side of the
Big
building.
Okay.
Visual.
Yeah, and probably more efficient.
So,
Aaron, $1 million question is, we give the school an exception on this. What do we do the next time a 50-year-old building shows up here?
Well, Dan, that's just where I'm going with this whole thing too, because we did do an exception, and we may as well say where it was at Wisconsin Public Service in the commercial industrial area. And we had they had the same problem, wind load, roof. Another thought as we were talking along here, they sure don't have any problems putting fasteners in the roof in order to get what they want. But they got a problem on screening it, which our ordinance says.
but the ductwork is not screwed into the roof. The brackets holding the ductwork are not screwed into the roof.
Correct.
It's not screwed into the roof?
The brackets holding the ductwork are set on top of the rubber membrane, and when we replace the roof, they get removed, you replace the roof, and then they're reset. So the ductwork basically, Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, supports itself, and that just keeps it from sagging, but it doesn't cause, you don't have to penetrate the roof as the ductwork runs are.
So you're saying, well, then why can't you do the same thing with the screening?
Because the wind load, the ductwork being
Oh,
round
well,
doesn't catch the
Go back
wind.
to the
and-
wind load again. We've never heard of wind load around here till WPS came and you came. Now we got a wind load problem. And we've done a lot of large structures here where wind load has never been an issue.
In my 20-plus years in Ashwaubenon School District, I've not heard of wind load until this project either, so I agree with you.
And Dan, to your question, it's a legitimate question. And I think it's something that, if there are older buildings that are dealing with this, they have to go through the same structural analysis that the school district did and WPS did before them to demonstrate if the structure can or cannot support the required screening. I mean, I think that is what provides the committee with the reasonableness to make a decision. And that said, there could very well be quite a few 50-year-old buildings that can't support it. But I think that's one of the benefits of having a ordinance that is somewhat flexible, that can take into account those realities.
So now that WPS is out on the floor, and we did the exception on that, there was a considerable difference, if you ask me. It was in an industrial area,
Right.
not a residential area. So I understand that, but now we're going to approve or make an exception in a densely populated residential area building, and that's just going to open the door for everybody. Because now we don't have an argument.
And I think, now the ordinance does very clearly and explicitly state that an exception for one project does not set precedence for another project.
I know.
So, I mean, but I think it's each project, if there's an exception request, has to be judged on its own merit.
So I'll go back to my original thing, and I thank Mary for going and talking to some residents, but I think I can live with this if we were to require the applicant, whether it's the school district or ABC Incorporated, to do an informational meeting or mailer to the immediately impacted residents of that area. And I think if their opinion, now, I totally understand, their opinion is going to be different as taxpayers than if it was a private business. But if they don't have a big issue with it, at least that would give us something to go back to a private industry and say, look, we made the school board talk to the residents, maybe you guys need to have an informational meeting and at least let the residents know what we're considering doing. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. And I think we could approve it contingent to them informing these people and then let them deal with the consequences. And whether it was a private person or our school district, if somebody's going to be upset, they're sure going to let you know about it.
Dan, I agree with you. The problem is it should have been done already.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I don't know the urgency of getting this approved. Maybe we can ask them to do that, and then 2 weeks come back after they've informed it, and we got a little reaction from, in this case, taxpayers, not residents. I don't know if that's unreasonable or not, but at least we're going to set a precedence that if we're going to approve this, we need to have an informational meeting with the taxpayers that are immediately affected by it.
Joel has something to say.
You know, we've done this in the past. We've had open house for projects like this. You know, the least we should do is tell them about what's happening. And if they have, I'm going back to probably what you're saying, Dan, but at least they're aware of this ductwork going on. And I don't know, I'm kind of bending over here a little bit, but you know, everybody is aware of all these public buildings are getting different types of air conditioning and changing air in the schools, and it's all because of the biggest excuse we got in 2020. So they're all aware of something of this nature being done. But I still think that, especially Valley View, because you can talk about trees and whatever else trying to hide it, but there's still 6 months of the year you're going to see it.
I will tell you that when I went to the residents, and granted, I only got to talk to 5 or 6 people that were home, it wasn't even a second guess. I literally almost didn't even have to explain it. The people are like, that looks fine to me. They never, and this one, you know, with the straight line is what, you know, it's going to really look like. So the difference between that and making them screen something, there's going to be no difference. So I would go to every house at night. People don't like to answer their door at night. I'd go on Saturday, you know, if that would make you feel more comfortable, but I don't know that it is going to be a big deal with the people.
And Mary, that's not my point. My point is, if we're going to continue to have this on 60-year-old buildings, I think the immediately affected residents or taxpayers should get informed of it before we just start approving this all the time. To set some kind of precedence for the next guy that shows up and says, well, we can't screen it. I mean, obviously, we have a lot because the school district has spent a lot of money and time trying to do the best they can with engineers involved versus a guy that just shows up and wants to put ductwork on the top of his tin building.
Right.
But I think I would want to know what the neighbor has to say if we're going to go away from, at least we're setting a precedence and not setting it up for every building that's 30 or 40 years old to come in here and yell wind shear wind loads.
Well, and I mean, maybe some of them are built with the proper wind load criteria. I don't know that.
Well, I mean, I thought, when we did it with public service, we required them to show us. We didn't give them a carte blanche approval without them justifying their request for the waiver. Under the same in this situation, which, they've come back with information and they've made some changes to make it better as best they can. And, I don't see any other reasonable alternative. I mean, I know we can go out and have public meetings, but to me, that's a bit of a slippery slope in the future, going, when do we do it, when don't we do it?
Joel, what did you have to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the comments that Aaron had made. As the site plan review committee, you're primarily charged with an administrative task. Does the applicant that's being presented, do they meet the requirements of code? Yes or no? Now, in this particular instance, there is some small gray areas within the code that allows an applicant, in this case, to request an exception. And it has been somewhat precedent setting that the applicant would have to come back with more information that details the structural impact of that requirement. Now, the school district has done that, and at this point, the committee either has to make a decision, yes or no. Do they meet the requirements of an exception due to the impact of the structure as it relates to the requirements of the screening? Yes or no. The idea about going back and getting feedback from residents and having public hearings and things of that nature, that does create issues of discretionary decision-making. And this committee is not charged with making discretionary policy-type decisions. It's strictly administrative, yes or no, with some small gray areas. That's left up to the village board, and the code does allow for the committee to, let's say, deny a request, in this case the exception, and then the district can certainly appeal that denial to the village board. And then at that point, the board has a little bit more discretion. Maybe they create some conditions on that appeal that requires some additional input or feedback from the public, things of that nature. But at that point, the board is setting policy, and that's the legislative body here in Ashwaubenon. They're the ones that have to set that requirement. So as you start to say, well, we like the school district, so we're going to not allow them or not require them to go out and get public input, but we don't like business XYZ, so we're going to make this extra onerous effort to have to get them to get public input and approval from their neighbors, and creating these additional restrictions or requirements that are not specified and laid out in the code, that does make problems for the committee in its decision-making, which could result in liability for the village.
Okay, so we don't want to do that.
No, don't want to do that.
If we deny this, we could deny it on the motion of bringing it to the village board to make the decision. Then we're going to have a whole bunch of other conversation on it that we're already hearing. I don't know if the school board or the engineers, the people that are in charge of this, are going to, or if they can, or can they make any more modifications to this in order to make it a little more visible or a little more appealing. I would like to think we could make some decision here.
I agree.
Okay. So, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Second,
that we accept it with staff conditions.
with the conditions.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dale Quinn, a second by Dennis Persick to accept the exception and the way it is the ductwork. Is that right? Okay, does everybody understand
With the
that?
modifications as they presented.
With the modifications as presented.
Absolutely.
Okay. Everybody understands? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, motion passes. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Keith. Department reports.
I think it's broke a record for our longest site plan review committee meeting. Congratulations. In working with Eric and Katie, they are out a lot on inspections, so we're trying to get in touch with them, just give them some time. It's been crazy busy spring. Spring is here. Construction has definitely started. In accordance with that then, as far as our next agenda, we have a number of agenda items. We also, there's a 5th week in March, so people have had an additional week to get information together. So we're going to have a full agenda for our first meeting in April.
Which has to be moved. The
Right,
April,
that's
the
correct.
April 6th one has to, so we'll be moving that.
Yeah, probably till the 8th, correct?
We're moving the Plan Board and Public Works to Thursday, the 8th.
Yeah.
Does Thursday, the 8th at 3 o'clock work for
What day?
Thursday, April 8th? Instead of Tuesday? We have election that
Unless we
day.
don't have a snowstorm, I'm okay.
Is that okay for everybody? The 8th at 3 o'clock? Okay? Okay. Need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
Motion by Gary, second by Andy to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We done.
This conference is no